Amazing being here. Quite something to follow in Tombi. That was amazing. I'm going to talk about something completely different. I'm going to take us out of that space for a little bit of time, a little bit more global. We're going to talk about the idea that health is being redesigned, very much in the theme of YPO, reimagine, re-educate, redesign. What I want to think about in this short time I have is the idea that our health journey, and by mean our health journey, I mean for each one of us sitting here today, looks a certain way right now in 2019. And you can have a look at the slide and you'll be able to see a few things you'll recognize, some more than others, of all the different touch points where health touches our lives and how we engage with the process of health. But what I'm really interested in talking about is what it's going to look like in the next 10 years. I wanted to think and reimagine what our health journey will be like in the next 10 years, 2020 to 2030. And they're all different points that we could explore in detail. I'm going to give you a very brief overview. We don't have enough time to go into each one individually. But there's an extraordinary change happening in healthcare. And it's being driven by two different things. The one is science. So we know there's some extraordinary happenings around genomics and metabolomics and CRISPR and really extraordinary technology. And then there's the technology of AI, of artificial intelligence, machine learning, augmented reality. And what's happening in the world of healthcare is that finally these two are converging. Like everything, like Uber or Airbnb, it wasn't that the idea was unique, it was the convergence of different technologies that created an idea. And what happened to taxis, what happened to buying books online, Amazon, Airbnb, Skype, is now happening in healthcare. Before we go into some of that kind of science technology, I wanted to just make one very strong point, and this is really the basis of all my work. And my work is more in the genomics and nutrition space, is that health is a daily choice. When we wake up in the morning, every single decision that we make will influence our health. By that I mean, we wake up, do we grab for our phone as the first thing we do when our eyes open? I have been known to do that. We then decide whether to eat or not eat. We go past our favorite local coffee shop and we grab a coffee. Do we choose the decaf, the soya, the almond milk, the chai? These are decisions, every single decision. Do you know that every single time we eat, we change gene expression? Every nutrient, every food. If you were outside this morning, no guilt here, and you chose the wheat-free, sugar-free, no fun biscuit, you altered your genes in a completely different way than if you went left and chose the other ones. Every coffee we choose, every plate of food, every time we choose a particular kind of exercise, if we meditate or manage stress, we are altering gene expression. Large health choices are not what alter gene expression. Every single second of every single day, we are changing gene expression. It takes 600 grams of fruit and vegetables a day to positively impact gene expression. And by gene expression, we mean gene behavior, switching on and switching off our genes. But I'm digressing, as often happens. So the space I work in is called personal genetics. We call it all different kinds of things. My area particularly is Nutrigenomics, nutrition and genetics. And this is why I talk about health is a daily choice, because we're eating all the time. We're 99.9% identical. We're 0.1% different. 0.1% means that at 3 to 4 million places in our DNA, we are different from each other. That means we respond differently to absolutely everything in our lives. We respond differently to the coffee we choose. We respond differently to stress, to emotion, to abuse, to environmental toxins, especially environmental toxins. So how do we know? How do we know who we are in terms of our responsiveness? That's what I'm interested in. How can I take you and say, you know what, this trial and error stuff, we're over it. That was 2019. I want to get something that talks to me. And so a lot of my work in the last 20 years has been, how do we use genomics or genetics to understand the individual, to be able to personalize whatever that intervention may be. It may be exercise, maybe stress, maybe nutrition, maybe environmental. Hopefully it's all of the above. And how do we engage with you? How do we talk to you? How do we have a conversation around genetics that you can understand, appreciate, and engage with? Because up until now, genetic testing in the marketplace has been appalling. It's a PDF, it's got tables, and it's got some data in. There's no ways you can engage with that. There's no ways it means anything to you. So I've been, the current project, the current company I've been working in, we've been trying to, some examples there, be able to create pictures for you. So for each of you, you get a report that's got your own pictures, and what your genetic test tells us about you will reflect in your image. Pharmacogenomics. 50% of all medicines do not work. 25% will be under-metabolized. In other words, they'll have no impact on your body at all. 25% will be over-metabolized, where we get side effects from overdosing. Only 50% of medicines work, and yet the pharmaceutical industry does not have this conversation. We have known about pharmacogenetics for decades. It's now prolific, it's everywhere, and yet it's still not daily practice, but it will become. MammaPrint is one small example of the extraordinary power of genomics to be able to provide the right treatment to the right patient at the right time. This is about breast cancer. When you have a tumor, you can have it sequenced, and that way the doctor can choose exactly the right chemo that they know is going to work. Do you know that when you have the wrong chemo, it actually causes more genetic alteration than you even began with? You don't want to be taking the wrong drugs for the wrong cancer at the wrong time. And then I'm kind of going to go back to what Liesl said before. A lot of the conversation that's happening in healthcare at the moment is around AI. You can go to entire conferences just about healthcare and artificial intelligence. And one of the most frightening conversations is this concept that 80% of doctors will be replaced. Always a little bit different when you live in South Africa, and it's a very different scenario. We're a different country. You go overseas, and you're like, wow, this isn't conjecture. This isn't a conversation. This is happening. I read an article about China this week. In China now, they have what they call staffless clinics. Patient goes to the clinic, no staff. It's all engaging with computer screens and machines. They have something called hospitals in the cloud, an entire hospital. You go into a room in the cloud, and they have something called 1-minute clinics, 1 minute, where they're able to diagnose you. They built a robot in China that took the medical exams of a doctor and passed. And one of the criticisms, one of the criticisms of medicine is that it's applied, that it's translational. So how did an AI robot pass medical exams if they couldn't apply the knowledge that they got by learning? This is the concept of machine learning and AI. Medicine is changing. I have many friends in my age group whose children are now starting to go to university. And many of them want to pursue medicine, or physio, or dietetics, or any of the health professions. And I'm alarmed. I'm alarmed because none of them are having a conversation with their children or between themselves about what medicine and healthcare is going to look like in 2030. The one thing I'm convinced is that it will not be what it is now. AI is exponential. It is changing healthcare. I went to an extraordinary conference in November called Exponential Medicine, where I literally didn't blink for 4 days because I realized that what I thought was science fiction was not science fiction. It was absolutely happening, and clearly it was happening in China, as often happens. We say democracy is really the barrier to technology. And when you take away democracy and privacy, there's extraordinary things that you can do. Not that I'm advocating it in any way, I'm just saying, which is why we're kind of ahead of the US. So we need to start thinking about this, because when our children make decisions about what degree they're going to do, I always say, if you want to do medicine, that's great, as long as you've got a computer science degree that went with your medical degree, because without it, you will not have a place. Dr. Pierre's amazing presentation at the beginning of today is not the doctor I'm talking about that's going to be out of work. She has so much expertise. She is such a specialist that she sits in that top 20%. I'm talking about the GPs. The radiologists are already well out the way. You know that we can about 99.5% accurate diagnose tumors using artificial intelligence and not using a radiologist. It's been happening for about a decade already. Anything that has repetitive scanning or repetitive work that we can map, AI's done it. Medici, fantastic American, actually it's an ex-South African, looks like WhatsApp, acts like WhatsApp, is like WhatsApp. They have doctors all over the world who run their entire medical practice off this app. You can upload images, scans, blood tests. You can do it by audio, by video, or by text. People want to engage more now on WhatsApp or WeChat than sitting in a doctor's room, waiting, being seen for 10 minutes, being dismissed. This is what we call telemedicine. There's an amazing company in South Africa called Hello Doctor, which is a more broad-based community initiative, which is an extraordinary idea, that most visits that happen in person in the doctor are not necessary and can be done on a phone. And that's the concept behind the 1-minute clinic in China. Had to throw this in. You know when you go for an assessment to the clinic and they want to do an ultrasound, doesn't matter whether you're pregnant, doesn't matter whether it's an injury, imagine now, it's really just an app on your phone. Plug it into your iPhone, scan yourself anytime, check how the baby's doing. Absolutely, this has been around for years, literally years. You can do blood pressure, you can do heart rate. They're pretty much these days you cannot get away from an iPhone. You can be a doctor on an iPhone and be able to do real-time measurements. One of the favorite companies that I met in November is not in the marketplace. I think it'll take them 5 to 10 years to get there. It's the concept of a wearable MRI. Now, anyone here been for an MRI? It is the most devastating process. It is a very big machine in a practice somewhere at a hospital, which means that it's already not accessible to most of the population. It costs an absolute fortune. It's got an extremely high price tag, and the experience is claustrophobic. If you have to go in a full-body MRI, it is quite devastating, but the information is extraordinary. I met the most amazing woman who is building the concept of a wearable MRI. You need a brain scan, put a beanie on. Serious. You want to have your spinal column MRI'd? You put a big belt on. It is just the most extraordinary, working on being able to put any piece of clothing onto your body at any time for about $300 to $400 to be able to do an MRI scan, Bluetooth facilitated, immediately uploads, will be sent to a central database, and will be able to immediately remember the radiologists have already gone, will immediately be able to be diagnosed. So for me, this is what your health journey looks like, 2020 to 2030. I didn't have time. There are extraordinary, extraordinary companies. There are digital pills that you take, that when they are activated in your body, they let you know that the pill is working. There are digital tattoos. You just plop it on your arm, it monitors everything in your body and sends it to your phone. There are polypills, which takes all the medication you do need and makes it into one. There's 3D printed medication. You have your 3D printer at home, prints your medication, pop it in your mouth. This is not a story. There is 3D printed medication. It's out there. Assessments. There's a watch that you can wear, especially for children and grown-ups who have epilepsy, that will alert you to an epileptic fit 20, 30 minutes before the fit is coming. There's EEGs down here, where anyone who's got heart, arrhythmias, something, they take a phone and you get a little cover. It's a phone cover. It looks like any other phone cover. You put your fingers on it at any time of the day, and it does an ECG for you. Sends it to your phone, goes through an IR process, and will tell you if there's any issue that you need to be dealt with. It is so incredibly exciting what genomics, technology, and science is bringing to us, that we need to be having these conversations with our children, with people we know who are moving into healthcare, companies, entrepreneurs who are working in healthcare, communities on how we can leverage technology to access more people, because we can't train enough doctors. No one can train enough doctors to be able to service the needs of healthcare that we're heading into. That's all. Thank you very much.